right now, this wave is coming up and I can feel like I don't want to talk about it. I feel like there's like a ball in my throat. Hello, lovely, and welcome back to another episode of Loving Life with Court. Today, we are going to get uncomfortable. We are going to talk about some feelings that are not really that desired, and we are talking about a life that is loved but can feel unpleasant. And what today's episode is really going to stem from is how to properly process your emotions, feel all the feelings, and the power of not reacting and what that looks like. First, we're going to do that by exploring the emotional mastery that stems from Dr. Joan Rosenberg's work. She is a psychiatrist and has done a lot of work on answering the question, what it is that helps someone develop self-esteem and self-confidence. And the answer to it was honestly quite surprising when I learned how she started exploring emotional mastery. So that's what we're going to be going through today. If you want to watch her entire TED Talk, kind of what inspired me to talk about this topic today, I will include the YouTube link in the show notes below. But without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. So as I said, Dr. Rosenberg made it her mission, her life's work, to answer the question, what it is that helps someone develop self-esteem and self-confidence. But really, let's go back a few steps and explore why having self-esteem and self-confidence helps you live a life that you love. And it all goes back to self-love, because obviously with self-love, self-esteem, and self-confidence are kind of the fundamental components of self-love. And if we don't love ourselves, if we aren't starting to explore what loving ourselves looks like, how are we supposed to understand what living a life that we love looks like? Because it all starts from within. So today, I'm really hoping if you are just having a hard time with regulating your emotions, understanding what's going on, feeling those big feelings, maybe you've been suppressing a lot of emotions lately. What really inspired me to talk about today's episode is I see so many people around me who struggle with acute and chronic pain, and it has really made me realize how I strongly believe that a lot of the physical pain that we feel is essentially linked to the emotional pain that harbors within our body. And this all goes to really suppressing emotions, suppressing trauma, suppressing that unpleasant feeling that you have associated to various events that's happened in your life. So in short, going back to Dr. Rosenberg's work, she asked, what is it that helps someone develop self-esteem and self-confidence? And her answer, after a lot of exploring, lots of studies, was the unpleasant feelings. What holds people back is the inability to deal with the unpleasant feelings. And this isn't just holding someone back from loving themselves and achieving things like self-esteem and self-confidence, but really holding them back from a lot of opportunities that they've had in their life because they don't want to deal with the unpleasant feelings that may be associated. And something she said is that she gets so excited when she has opportunities to feel unpleasant emotions. And obviously, being the optimistic bitch I am, every time I'm going through a hard time, I always know that there's going to be an amazing light at the end of the tunnel. Typically, when I have my biggest breakdowns are the times where I have my biggest revolutions and come out with a greater sense of understanding of why I felt those unpleasant emotions and how it's helped me along my journey. But for many of you, I'm sure that even just me saying unpleasant feelings, a feeling comes up that you don't really want to feel. And we're going to explore why that is and how to get through that by learning how to get excited about unpleasant feelings. And this is the ability to move through 8 unpleasant feelings that I will go through, where you can pursue anything you want in life. So if you have the ability to move through these emotions, these feelings, these times where your body and your mind respond in what you may consider a negative way, you can pursue anything you want in life if you're able to do so. So let's explore how to do this. And this is what Dr. Rosenberg refers to her equation, and it is 1 choice, 8 feelings in 90 seconds. And the 1 choice is to stay present in your moment-to-moment experiences. And she goes on to say that it's not the big choices that change our life, it's the moment-to-moments, like every moment you suppress or avoid feelings or emotions, and you don't take the opportunity to feel every moment that you are going through, those small little things that accumulate to those big changes in your life. One choice, and this is to stay present in your moment-to-moment experience. And these 8 feelings are the feelings that make you feel unpleasant and uncomfortable. And the clients that she has worked with in the past, she makes them promise that moving forward, that emotions will no longer be recognized as positive or negative, but simply unpleasant or uncomfortable. And these 8 emotions include sadness, shame, helplessness, anger, vulnerability, embarrassment, disappointment, and frustration. For you, I'm sure you have been in a place where we go back to that one choice of staying present, but you choose avoidance instead of awareness. I've been there. I'm sure you've been there. But the secret is to stay fully present. And this is a choice that you make. And I'll give you an example of where you are avoiding emotions and how that is impacting your life. And this is when we say, whatever, it's fine. I'm over it. I don't want to think about it anymore. I'm letting it go. But really, are you actually over it? Is it actually fine? Are you actually letting it go? And I want you to think about this as like every emotion that comes up is like a ball, right? And when you say whatever, it's fine, whatever, I'm letting it go, kind of think of that ball and you're really storing it in a part of your body where, at first, okay, it's uncomfortable and you had the opportunity to really work through it and have the opportunity to throw that ball away, but instead you've stored it. And what happens with that ball is then it begins to affect your body. It begins to affect your mind because it's not supposed to be there. We are supposed to feel unpleasant emotions. We are supposed to feel uncomfortable. Our mind and body want to do that. They want to work through things. But what we don't like experiencing is how our mind and body reacts to that, how we have categorized these emotions and the events that are associated with it. And these patterns that continue to happen eventually, like I said, can turn into physical ailments, but it can also harbor into negative habits or habits that aren't really serving you. And I can tell you the one habit that I have relied on for a long time, which is food. Whatever, it's fine, I'm over it. And then I end up going and eating comfort food to make me feel better. Some people, maybe you as well, will rely on things like pornography or sex or even like going to work out. A lot of people, and I myself, thought that working out was a way to deal with my emotions. But a lot of times what I was doing is, okay, I was feeling upset, I'm going to go for a run. But I actually wasn't working through anything. I was just finding a way to distract my mind and seek a different form of stimulation and comfort. So why do we do this? Why, when our mind and body want to work through these things, they want to feel these emotions, why do we suppress it? And in short, we are afraid it will never stop. We are afraid that those files that we have in our mind of every time we felt angry, every time we felt shameful, every time we felt embarrassed or vulnerable, that if it comes up, we will never stop feeling those emotions. When we suppress, those emotions become bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've talked about this before. The more that we suppress, the more that we feel. And I know it doesn't make sense, but every time, let's say, for example, you've had some situations where you felt very vulnerable and people have maybe done you wrong. And instead of feeling that, you suppress it. So then the next time that happens to you, you're not just feeling that one incident, you are feeling the lifelong feelings of being vulnerable, being disappointed, being embarrassed. So what we have to do to move forward is give yourself grace and trust and understanding that it will stop. You don't have to be afraid that if you begin to feel these things that it will never end and you're just constantly going to feel it. If anything, it is the complete opposite. So let's continue to explore that. Facing these emotions supports your emotional strength, and it goes back to building a sense of self-confidence, building that self-esteem. And to elaborate, when we feel emotionally, our body feels it first as a sensation. And that's what we want to distract from. We just don't want the bodily sensations. But science has shown that these feelings, when you get angry, it's like a rush, it's like a wave that you have in your body. And science has shown through studies that this wave that we feel actually only lasts 60 to 90 seconds. But what happens is that the minute that we feel that sensation, we begin to fight it. And that 60 to 90 seconds sometimes turns into a full day, maybe even a week, and maybe even it becomes our state of being. I always say to the little kiddos that I work with, because I work with children with autism, and I help them with any behavioral issues that they may have. And I always say to them that a weak mind is controlled by the body. A strong mind works harmoniously with the body. And what I mean by that is a lot of the decisions that we make come from our body. But what we don't realize is that our mind should always be in control. Our mind is like not the hoverboard, what's the word? Our mind is like the control board, right? And when we feel these bodily sensations, what happens is that we allow our entire body to take control, not just for that 60 to 90 seconds, but our heart rate increases, our anxiety starts to spike, and this response that our body had then overtakes our mind. But what we want to work on is where we get these sensations or triggers from our body, and our mind then understands, okay, how are we going to work through this? How are we going to feel that? And that goes back to the choice of being present and being in the moment, taking those 60, 90 seconds to understand why you're feeling this way, what's going on, and how can you move forward, because it's only 60 to 90 seconds. I've talked about this a few times already, but when we don't release things, it harbors within our body. You want to imagine it as this object, something that's tangible. And the more that you're doing to that body, the more that you are affecting your body. The more that you're affecting your body, your mind is then affected. And this is where we fall out of alignment with where our mind and body are working harmoniously. In short, what is the solution to this? Move towards the feelings that you never wanted to experience again and embrace it. For me, helplessness and shame is a big one. When I was not feeling great about my body, when I, had bad eating habits, when I abused my body for a long time, I felt very shameful. I felt very helpless. I felt like no one else could help me, and the only person that can help me is myself. But I had so much shame, and it was just such a sad feeling, such an unpleasant feeling to have. And that was something that I never wanted to feel again. And when it does come up, I suppress it. I make it hide. I don't want to feel it because I'm not that person anymore. But what I've continued to do, even though I'm not that person anymore, she's still within me because I've never actually processed it and felt it. So for me, one thing that I'm doing is every morning I'm checking in with my body. How is it feeling? What do I feel towards it? I try to journal more about those feelings that I've had and the feelings that still reside within me. And I'm constantly, right now, this wave is coming up and I can feel like I don't want to talk about it. I feel like there's like a ball in my throat. I'm like getting a little bit shaky because it really bothers me. But this is because it's still within my body. When I get shaky, when I don't want to talk about it, it's like all of these objects don't know how to get out, right? So the more that I talk about it, the more that I embrace it, the more that I let it out, the less that I feel long term and the less that resides within me. And the greater my self-esteem is, the greater my self-confidence is, the greater my self-love is, and the more that I am able to live a life that I love. And this is where I remind myself that these feelings are temporary. 60 to 90 seconds. We can handle this. And is it one wave? Is it 60 to 90 seconds and you'll never feel it again? Definitely not. When it comes to grief, these are like waves of waves. When you lose somebody, when you lose something close to you, like an animal or maybe even an experience, I'm sure we've all been there, and it's like a wave after wave after wave. But instead of suppressing, those waves begin to get smaller, And they may still come up for the rest of your life, these waves, but they're just not as big as the last one when you are able to be present, make the choice to be in the moment, and let it ride. Just ride that wave. Get on your little surfboard and ride it out. These feelings will always subside. Just surf on that wave, like I said. Something that I tell myself all the time that is a really big reminder, going back to how we store those emotions, is emotions will always find a way out. It's your choice how they will exit. And to give you an example, I don't want to blow up in terms of my emotions. And, it's like a bottle. When I was a kid, my mom used to always say that I was like a pending exploding bottle. And I would just keep filling up the bottle and filling up the bottle and shaking the bottle and shaking the bottle. And then I would explode over the smallest thing. And this was because I had been taught from a young age, even I taught myself to suppress these emotions, to let them go deep within me so that I could feel it later. But when I felt it later, it wasn't in a space where I felt comfortable to do so. It definitely did not last 60 to 90 seconds because that wave turned into another wave and another wave. And essentially I was a whole fucking ocean and a tsunami hit. And I'm sure you can resonate with that. But know that they will find a way to exit. It's your choice how they will do that. And when you are able to do it in a way that is present, where you're presently doing it, where you're in a safe space, that is where the healing begins. That is where the waves tend to get smaller. And that 60 to 90 seconds passes within no time. That's like less than a full song. You can do it. I know you can. And this is the power of not reacting, but responding. When we react, we do it quickly. We don't have a lot of thought going into it. And it's the first thing that comes to our mind, especially when we are in a state of unpleasant. We're not feeling comfortable. But when we are responding, this is a slow process. But as I said, that slow process, being present, allowing yourself to feel the things are what make those big changes. That's today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you all, and a friendly reminder to not only be kind to others, but also to your beautiful self.